We'll head back to court in just a moment, but first, joining me here in studio to discuss and break it all down, attorney Michael Jaafar. Always great to see you, especially in person. Listen, I've told you, I think at this point, either side can convince a jury, so I think there might even be another hung jury. Where do you stand on this, the guilt of Karen Read, and whether or not it can be proven?
Oh, that's a great question. So I hope it can be proven. If this was any other case, if we had common sense and rational thinking, I think it's a slam dunk. But we don't know with this jury, right? This is a completely different case in many ways. I look at the opening statements. Here's what I took from the opening statements. Hank Brennan went up there and said, I'm going to show you that the earth is round, not flat. And if you believe that the earth is round, you're going to find that Karen Read did this. Alan Jackson got up there and did what he had to do, which is, I'm going to show you that the earth is flat. And the reason it's flat is because Michael Proctor's a bad guy. That's how I read from the opening statements, right? I look at her defense theory as completely delusional, divorced from reality. I call it the Bigfoot theory. Why? Tongue-in-cheek. Because it's more likely that Sasquatch popped out of the forest behind Albert's home, smashed John O'Keefe into the taillight, and then disappeared back into the forest. The reason that that's more likely than her theory is because that only requires me to make one idiotic assumption, that Bigfoot exists and he had an axe to grind against John O'Keefe. To believe Karen Read's theory, you got to have at least 18, you got to make 18 like idiotic assumptions.
But it worked the first time around. The theory hasn't changed, I think, since the first trial, and that was a hung jury. So how do you explain that? I mean, I do think that there's some compelling arguments and pieces, and there are things that the state messed up on the first time. Let's be honest. The Sally Port, when it was backwards on the video, things like that. Proctor, you got to take your witness as you find him. And I'm sorry, Proctor, he's a problem.
He was a Furman-esque witness.
Yes,
he was
example
terrible.
Of OJ.
But here's what I'll say about Proctor. He was the best thing that happened to Karen Read's defense theory. Why? When they found out, they were talking about the conspiracy hoax long before they knew that a misogynistic pig was handling her investigation. He's a monster. He's a complete pig, right? But they were talking about conspiracy long before he fell into their lap, and he's a gift
because he's reasonable doubt. I do think that there's a point where that can be thought of as reasonable doubt, and at least one juror might do that.
I do agree that at least one juror would do that. But in his opening statements, Alan Jackson, I felt like it was too much Michael Proctor, and I know why. It's like when I used to think I knew how to swim when I was in 4th grade. I jumped into the pool. I didn't know how to swim. So I started flailing for the edges, right, to save my life. That's kind of how I felt like it was with the opening statements for Alan Jackson. I think they're flailing. I think they're gambling too much on Michael Proctor. I think this time it's not going to pay off for them.
But I will say I think that they're experienced trial attorneys on both sides, and that's very clear as we're watching them advocate for their respective positions. All right, let's get back into court now. The paramedic Daniel Whitley is still on the stand, cross-examination by the defense.